All right, so to revive this channel, I am going to start with something that I know quite well and that I think will be quite interesting to most people, which is the Swift programming language. It's a language by Apple. It's really cool. I'm just going to go over the basics today and why you might want to learn it. So we're going to start by installing Xcode. So if you don't have it installed, all you have to do is go to the App Store on your Mac and search for Xcode and install. Once you install, it's going to ask you to do something called install Commandline tools. You just got to follow through with that, and it gives you some cool stuff to do. So wait, what is Xcode? Xcode is the IDE, fancy name for Integrated Development Environment, which is the fancy name for the thing that you write your code in. And it's got a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool features that we will see as we go along. Now, Xcode has these things called playgrounds and projects. Projects are just like what you think they are. They're just a thing, like the whole project of your code. Playgrounds are like tiny little projects. They're kind of buggy. I don't really like them, but I'm just going to deal with starting an Xcode project. Once you click that, we're going to select Mac OS and Command-Line Tool. So these other tabs are for making actual applications, but we just want a place to write some basic code with no other fluff going on. We just want our code. So we're just going to do a Command-Line Tool and hit Next. I'm going to call this Swift Lesson 01. I'm not going to select a team because we don't need that feature. Organization name and identifier I just set to my school because that's where I am. And make sure your language is Swift. When I go to save this, you'll notice that there's a thing for create Git repository. If you're not familiar with Git, it's just a cool way to keep track of changes in your code as you go along. It's useful for a lot of reasons, and I'll go into it in a later video. All right. So we're going to ignore the stuff in the middle and just go straight to the main.swift file on the left. I'm going to make this window a little bigger. It disappeared. There we go. All right, so I've been thinking a lot about how to frame this tutorial, whether I want this to be for absolute beginners or for programmers. And so I'm going to try to do both. So once you open this up, you'll notice that all it is this thing called import foundation and print. And for programmers, notice how there's no semicolon on the end, as some languages require, and there's also no main function. Swift just knows this is like a complete program. This is all you need to do, and this is why I think Swift is a very nice language to use, because you can start off just writing basic stuff. Like, I don't really need to explain much, because all you gotta do is hit run with Command R, or by clicking the plus button in the top left here. I'm gonna click this little button on the bottom right just to hide this little left pane. And as you can see, we've printed Hello World, the inaugural thing for all programmers to print out. Cool. So let's go over some language features. First, I'm going to go over variables. So I'm going to do actually mark. Mark, this is just a special kind of comment that just bolds it so it's easier to see. And by the way you create comments is with 2 slashes and a space. Comments are just cool ways to keep track of what's going on. So when you have complex bits of code, it's easy to read. I'll go over that. I'll have a whole video on comments. Oh my God, I'd love to talk about that. Cool. Let's do variables. So Swift has 2 kinds of variables. So the first kind is just a normal variable. Let's say I want one for my age, because my age hopefully changes. I will do var age equals 21. Now, this is all you need. In other languages, you have to say what this is. This is an integer or an int. And if you're coming from Java, you'd have to do like, int age equals 21. But Swift just figures it out. This is a fancy feature called type inference, and that's it. It just figures out what you want to do. You can define the type manually if you just do colon space is optional, and just do int like that. But you don't need to do that. You can just do that. And you don't need a semicolon as well, as I mentioned. The second kind of variable is a let. So if I do let name equal Peter, now, unless I go fill out a lot of paperwork, my name is going to stay the same. So I don't need my name to change, whereas my age changes. So the fancy words for this. So var is mutable. It's something that can change, whereas a let is immutable. Cool. So yeah, why does Swift have this? In most languages, you actually just add like another word. You would just do like var const or something of that for a constant. Constant. You do that one for a constant. But in Swift, this is a core part of the language because Swift is all about safety. It's about making code that's very nice to read and that you can't really mess up in unless you really try hard to. So That's why that's there. So I don't accidentally change my name somewhere in my code, for example. It will not change. If I tried to, by the way, this is something I encourage you to try, is try to break your program. I could do name equals Bob. And if I try to run this with Command R, it says, hey, I can't assign to it. Name is a let constant. So I'm not going to do that. So one quick thing before this video ends is how do we actually print out variables? So the way you do that is you type print. So let's say I want to print my age is 21. I will do my age is, and then I do backslash, 2 parentheses, age. This is called string interpolation. Trust me, programming has a lot of fun little names for things. And this basically says when the compiler goes through and it builds your program, it will just literally drop the variable of age into here and show it on the screen. We can test this by pressing Command R or clicking the play button, and it now says, my age is 21. For your C programmers out there, notice how there's no new line. Swift will automatically put a new line at the end of each print. So that's all I'm going to cover today. In the next video, I'm going to go over for loops and if statements. I'm separating these things out a little bit just because I want to go into a lot more detail about, the reasons behind why they're formatted the way they are, and if you're coming from another language, why Swift does things in such an interesting way. Because trust me, there's a reason for everything. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all follow me on this journey through the wonderful world of Swift.
I'm a nomad.